to another episode of Phoenix Edge. This is an RPG and gaming news podcast. My name is Hat.
And I'm Eric.
And today we are going to be talking about Tales of Vesperia that is coming out on Friday, I believe, right? January 11th.
Yep, that's Friday, January 11th.
So that'll be the HD remaster. And then we're going to be talking about 2018 RPGs and essentially our thoughts on as many as we can anyways. And just giving a kind of like brief general thoughts on a bunch of different various RPGs that came out this year. And then finally, we're going to talk about open world games or open world RPGs. It's been the basically the dominant, prevalent way to make, mainstream RPGs. So we're going to talk about, just open world RPGs in general. Do we like them? Where do we think they're going? How long can it last? Is there any way for it to evolve into the future? And then we have comments from last week's podcast. I shouldn't really say last week. It was a couple days ago, but anyways, it was for last week's podcast before New Year's. So before we get into all that, Eric, have you been playing anything new over the last couple of days?
Nothing really new. I've been going through Phantasy Star 2 on my Switch and dabbling through a couple more of the PS4 games. I've been doing side questing in Horizon, and since I already beat Spider-Man, I've been kind of playing the waiting game till Kingdom Hearts and Resident Evil come out, but I do have the FF14 4.5 patch coming out, which is going to conclude the Evil East story that's in that game, and which is rumored to also give a sneak peek of the Vieira race that is pretty much coming to FF14 and next expansion, the Vieira race from the Evil East world.
Right.
And then it'll have the first part of the conclusion of the Stormblood story, which will lead into the next expansion story. So that's going to be pretty exciting right there, and a couple other content things also. So that will occupy at least most of my week.
Cool.
But it's pretty much a wait till the end of the month for the most part.
Yeah, that's kind of how I am. I'm kind of trying to be careful with what I get myself into. I'm not doing a very good job of it, though, because I've been doing all sorts of games. I've continued to play Edge of Eternity a fair amount. I've gotten a lot further than I put up on YouTube. And despite the fact that that game has some serious issues, there's nothing that gives me concern because it is an early access game. And, the team size is 9 people, and they're regularly working on some of the issues. Everything's very playable, but there's just issues that you'll notice if you do play it, like some of the animations for the characters when they're talking. It just doesn't look very good. It looks very early 2000s. Every now and again, you'll get a little graphical bug, stuff like that. Nothing major, but, it is an early access build of the game. So that's been occupying my time a little bit every night. And then also yesterday I did a couple hours of Shadows of Adam. I streamed it on here on YouTube, and that's a good game. I really, really like it. It's definitely an indie game for sure. Like you can tell some of the humor falls flat, but you can tell the people that made it are really, really big fans of that SNES style of games. So it's really good.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a big fan of all the early access games. I'd rather play a game in its completed form. It's pretty cool that people can play it early and just like tell the developers, hey, this is something wrong with it. This is a fundamentally wrong thing at its core. I don't know if they will change it from that. But I usually just wait for the final product and let other people do the criticisms.
Yeah, so it's what it is. I like being a guinea pig though, and getting in there early and seeing what they got going on. So I like it. But anyways, I've also been playing Kingdom Hearts, the original game, the first one. I've been playing the PS2 version, so The camera controls have been driving me nuts.
Really, the PS2 version? Is
Yeah,
there any particular reason why?
because that's the one I have.
Oh, go go out, get like the PS4 one that's like
Yeah,
$20, and you get like in an HD, you get to use the right analog for the camera.
yeah, I know, I know. I'm at that point now where I'm like 8 hours into the game, and I'm like, if I go out and get the PS4 version, it's gonna alleviate a lot of the, just the fact that it's an older game now. But I would have to redo that 8 hours. So it's kind of like I might as well just keep going forward, because I'd like to get through that game and hopefully at least one more Kingdom Hearts game just to refresh my memory before Kingdom Hearts 3 comes out. If I can't do that, I'm just gonna watch like a movie version of the game, just to refresh my memory, because it's been a long time since I've really tried to dive into those games. I've never beaten any of them, just because I got to a scene or two that just made me put my controller down. But I'm a little more mature these days, so
For the Kingdom Hearts, you gotta accept the cringe, man.
yeah. See, Lane, he says, "Hey fellas, what's up, man?" Says, "I tried playing Kingdom Hearts 1, but the constant camera issues and not knowing where to go is driving me nuts. I'm playing Kingdom Hearts 2 though now and loving it." Yeah, Kingdom Hearts 1 has that problem where you're just like, I don't feel like they really told me what I was supposed to do, and I'm supposed to just figure it out. It's kind of driving me nuts this playthrough at first, but I'm starting to get in the groove of things. Eric, do you prefer Kingdom Hearts 2 or 1? I've heard a lot of people can prefer 2 for some reason.
I guess you can. It's kind of like something I prefer from one than the other. Gameplay wise, I definitely prefer 2, because 2 pretty much takes everything that was wrong with 1 and just made it, or just what worked in 1 and made it better in 2, and did a better job alleviating the stuff from Kingdom Hearts 1. Because one thing that usually bothered me in Kingdom Hearts 1 was eventually the enemies would feel tedious to get past, to the point where I'm like, screw it, just dodge roll past them and go to the next place. I don't feel like dealing with this. Kingdom Hearts 2 does a lot better job feeling good, if that's the right way to put it. They zoom out the camera. It feels really good to swing your Keyblade, jump in the air, do a bunch of crazy combo swings, and it just feels really fun to track through that. You don't really feel bored going through that. Boss wise, I guess they're both good in their own way. Kingdom Hearts 2 steps up the game a lot. Obviously, it's a sequel. But,
Yeah.
I guess overall, I prefer Kingdom Hearts 2 more over 1. 1 may have a more simple to follow story, but Kingdom Hearts 2 definitely has the better gameplay.
Yeah, well, I've kind of come to the realization, at least for me, is that like I don't think that I'm gonna enjoy Kingdom Hearts 3 for the story as much as I'm gonna enjoy it for the moment, right? Like just getting to explore whatever world I'm on and entertaining myself with the current situation at hand. But like the main plot, I don't think I'm really going to get too excited about, and it's probably going to frustrate me a little bit, to be honest.
The problem I have, and it's almost every Kingdom Hearts game, is that the not like the Kingdom Hearts parts of the story, but like the Disney parts you go to, each world feels like a Cliff Notes version of the movie, and when I play it, like it's like they expect you to have seen the movie first before seeing that. And most people have seen these Disney movies, so in a way, I guess it's fine. But if you're like someone who's never watched a Disney movie and you like pick this game up and play it, like the stories of each of these are just like, what? It's like they're so quick. They're like, they feel lifeless sometimes. Like they sometimes try to recreate the dramatic moments of the like climax of the Disney movies, and they kind of fall short. Like Lion King World from Kingdom Hearts 2 is like a good example of this.
Yeah.
It's kind of weird, and it makes for a lot of awkward situations, and a lot of times Sora becomes like he's like 14 to 15 years old in these two games, and like he becomes like a freaking like 7 or 8 year old like having fun at Disney World. He goes to these worlds, but then he goes back to acting like, like a teenager again, like when you're back to like the Kingdom Hearts related story. Right. It's a weird thing between the two.
Sure. Yeah, it's a little off-putting. It's what it is, though. I think these games are meant to just be fun, and that's kind of how I'm taking it. So
yeah, I'd be interested to see how they handle in Kingdom Hearts 3. My guess is probably the same, but it's a nitpick mostly. I mean, I enjoy it overall. It just feels like if you've never seen the movies, it's just weird and awkward.
Yeah, for sure. All right, well, that's got us caught up on what we've been playing. So we have Tales of Vesperia, the HD remaster, coming out on... Originally, I thought it was coming out on Thursday. I don't know why I thought that until you corrected me. It's coming out on Friday, the 11th. So that's going to be the Switch version and the Xbox version. How do you feel about that? Are you going to pick it up on Friday?
I'm in the middle. Not because I don't like the game. It's my favorite Tales game. Don't get me wrong. I think it's the best one in the series thus far. And then the main character is fantastic, and the characters are charmable, likable. The world's great. The story keeps itself interesting.
They're adding new content to this game too, right?
Yeah. I don't want to spoil it, but they do add 2 additional characters to the game. Two playable characters. Game. I won't say who they are because they are part of the story, but they add 2 new characters in this version, and it's from the definitive version that came out for the PS3 in Japan that we never got. We got the 360 version, but then the license broke and they ported it to PS3, and they had the definitive version, and we just never got that.
So these 2 characters that they're adding, though, were these characters like? Were they in the world of the version that we got originally? They just weren't like, is it kind of attributable to maybe if they re-released Final Fantasy IX and we got to play as Beatrix, like Beatrix existed in the original, but now like she travels with us for a little bit or something like that? Or are these like characters they just made up? Like these are characters we have no idea. They just inserted them into the story.
One yes, sure. One yes, one no. One of them is a character that is very close to the story. You see him, you see him constantly. He's the interesting thing is when I played the game the first time, I was always expecting him to join the party, but he never. But like, there's even a time where he joins you in like a battle or 2 in the game, but he never like officially joins your party for it. But in this version, they actually rewrote the story to have him join your party instead of just coming in and out like he usually does.
You think that's an improvement?
Yes, definitely improvement. I mean, just everyone wanted him to join the party, and he didn't. The other character I don't recognize. I can't say if she was already in the world or not, but I do not remember this character at all if she was, because she looks completely new to me. And on top of that, they added new scenes with her when she joins, and they had to like rehire some of the voice actors, and someone had to impersonate Troy Baker.
Oh boy.
I mean, I guess if you weren't looking out for it, you wouldn't really tell. But if you're someone who's like, I don't know, maybe like an anime fan or someone who listens close to the localization, you'll probably hear it.
You'll probably notice. Yeah. Yeah. I'm kind of with Lane here. Lane says definitely want to play Vesperia at some point, but probably won't have time while frantically catching up on Kingdom Hearts. I'm kind of down his route, but I'm a little bit in the middle. I'm tempted to pick it up on Friday anyways, because it's been a game that I want to pick up and play because I've never played it before. And I kind of feel like if I don't pick it up then, who knows when I'm going to pick it up. But man, Kingdom Hearts is coming out at the end of the month, and it's just, I know Tales of Vesperia at least is a 50-hour game on your first playthrough. So I don't know if in between that and other games, or just, life, if I'm going to be able to get through that before Kingdom Hearts 3 comes out.
Well, it's not that I don't want to pick it up.
Well, you've already played it.
Yeah, I mean, I've already played through it. I do want to see the additions and everything. I'm just going to wait till it's cheaper just because there's a lot going on starting at the end of January, and I don't think I can put the 50 hours in to it before the other games come out. So I kind of want to pick it up when
the price drops.
Well, one, when the price drops, and two, when I'm kind of like in a rut. Like, I don't have anything to play. Yeah. It's like, oh, this would be perfect. I wanted to try this out.
See, and that's, when I think about it from that lens, I'm tempted to pick it up on Steam eventually, because I know that Nintendo, they're gonna have that thing full price for like 47 years, because that's what Nintendo does. I mean, they'll probably have it, on sale during Black Friday or something like that next year, but I mean, I know Steam, like, they're regularly just having these crazy sales. So if I'm going to try to get it on like a good price during kind of like an off season, I'm thinking that Steam might be the better way to go, even though I'd prefer to get it on the Switch for me personally.
I will say, though, it's just a time constraint for me, but if anyone's looking for a good long RPG and you're not planning on getting like Kingdom Hearts or anything like that in the month, it's a very good Tales game. It is the best one by far, in my opinion. It's 50 hours long. It paces itself very well. The characters are very likable. The battle system, I think, is the finest the series ever had until it started going into its experimentation phase after that. It's gorgeous looking. I mean, they do such a good job with the cell shading, and it works so well with the environment. The game is beautiful, even to this day.
Yeah, I mean, it looks really, really good. I've watched a trailer for it a couple times, and it's definitely on my to get list for sure. So
yeah, I'm adding it to my I will get to it list.
Yeah,
I will just enjoy Phantasy Star 2 and next week, not this week, or not the upcoming week, but the week after, January 15th. Onimusha HD is coming out.
Oh, really?
I want to play that. I can beat that in 5 hours.
How long is that game? You said 5 hours?
If you're playing it for the first time and you're trying to figure out where to go, I think it's about a 10-hour game if you do everything.
See, that's my style. I got Kingdom Hearts 3 coming out at the end of the month. 10 hours, that's very doable to me. So, because I don't like to pick something up and then put it down, and then you try to pick it up again 5 months later and you don't remember where you're at or something like that. So
yeah, that game is basically Resident Evil with samurais.
That sounds awesome.
More action oriented, but it does feel like Resident Evil with katanas.
What's up, BioPhoenix? Says he was going to catch us on the next stream. Looks like he kept his word. All right, let's go ahead and move on. If it's all right with you, to 2018 RPGs in review. So we're not going to be able to go through every single game that came out in 2018, or even the RPGs in general, but we can kind of hit the highlights of them, kind of talk about them a little bit if we got something to say. And I think it'd be kind of fun to just kind of look at this whole year and really just try to bring back some memories from this past year, because there's a lot of games that came out this year that I've totally forgotten about, that this may be the last time we're ever going to talk about them. So
I went through the list. I had to go back and check and look at the list. I'm like, wait, what RPGs came out this year? I'm like, oh, Ni no Kuni 2, Xenoblade. I think Xenoblade came out 2018.
I know the DLC came out in 2018. I'm not sure if let me check real quick, because that would be a big release.
Consort the all-knowing one.
December 1st, 2017.
Okay. So maybe we can talk, maybe the DLC. You can justify it that way. I haven't played the DLC, though, so I can't really talk about it.
Yeah. Well, I know that the DLC, a lot of people like the DLC better than the main game. So that's definitely something of note. But yeah, I haven't really dived into that, so it's not something I can really talk about in depth. I'm looking at this list. I simply did a 2018 RPGs Google search just to kind of get a list here and some ideas. And the first one that came up was Monster Hunter World. I know you picked that up at launch. How far did you get into that game? Did you ever beat it, or are you still playing it occasionally?
I got close to beating the story, but unfortunately, I didn't join the end game scene. There were still other games around that I wanted to play. I've been wanting to get back into it. It's just I've been feeling a little intimidated to do it, but with the PS4 Pro now, it's been more tempting than ever. But now I got the FF14 patch coming up. Now, like again, I'm not going to have time for it. So, I mean, it's a great game. If you like gear grinding, this is probably like one of the best games you can get for it. Like, I mean, it's a lot of fun to like hunt these monsters, get the next piece of gear, and just keep going and going until you get more powerful and you start taking on the most powerful monsters, and that really tests your skill as a player in that game. And I mean, the fights are just really fun, and especially when you're as friends and you have like a microphone talking to each other, coming up with strategies, telling each other where the monster went, working together. I mean, it's a great experience, and I can recommend that to anyone that likes like action games with like gear grinding elements to it. I mean, it's a top-notch game. Capcom did a great job, and they do a good job keeping it up too.
Yeah, I intended to pick it up, but I just got busy with other things. But I've been tempted to get it a couple of times, so maybe 2019 will be the year for me. Did you ever try Fallout 76? Yeah, I didn't think so.
I officially quit Bethesda RPGs. I just can't get into them. I've honestly tried.
Yeah, you know what it is? It's not that they're like bad games. It's just I get bored like really easily, and it'll be like 4 o'clock in the morning, and I'll like go to bed, and I wake up the next day, and I realize I didn't really do much with my life the day before, except like, I don't know, wander around aimlessly and really not do anything. So yeah. I don't know. Some people like that experience, but I don't.
I understand. I'm not going to say they're bad games. Well, maybe Fallout 76, but I'm not going to say they're bad games at all. It's just they don't appeal to me at all. And this is me, someone that really likes Western RPGs now. And I thought it'd be like, okay, well, since I've really gotten into them now, I should be more interested in the Bethesda games. Those RPGs are just the ones I can't really get into, like the Fallout world. I will give an exception to New Vegas and Elder Scrolls Morrowind. Those I were able to find interest in, but like Oblivion, Skyrim, Fallout 4, and Fallout 3 too.
See, when it comes to like that,
it's just something so boring about them to me. The world just does not interest me enough. A lot of times the characters feel stale.
Yeah.
And they feel like NPCs, not people of that world. And it gets to me really quickly, and I just keep losing interest the more I play. And I've tried so many times to get into the games, and I even bought the Switch version of Skyrim just to think, oh, maybe I'll like it in the portable form.
Yeah, I bought it too. Yeah,
I just can't do it.
I think I've played like 30 minutes of Skyrim on Switch. I had big visions of me just sitting there like diving into it, but it's not a bad game at all. It's just I just feel like I've played this before. So Lane says, after putting 250 hours in Skyrim, trying to play any other Bethesda game just feels like I'm playing the same game with a different skin. Yeah, that's exactly how I felt between Fallout 3 and excuse me, not Fallout 3. Fallout 3, and then we had New Vegas. Like, they basically felt like the same games to me. Like, I didn't really feel like it. Like, I feel like I just bought the same game with like a different part of the map.
That's a good way to put it, Lane. They really all feel the same to me.
Yeah, and then 76 has just been like I don't even think hardcore fans of the series really appreciate that game at all. So I don't know what's going on with Bethesda these days.
Yeah, I mean, like I said again, I won't. They're not bad games. They definitely appeal to other people. That it just doesn't. They don't personally appeal to me. Uh, it's just something about them that it just doesn't click with me. And after I put 30 hours in the Skyrim, and I was trying to find interest in it, and it just couldn't happen.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree about Phoenix. He says he's not into the newer Elder Scrolls, but he did like Oblivion for its side quests. I'm one of those people. I didn't mind Oblivion, but I know some people they're not a fan of it. So I didn't mind Oblivion. I thought Skyrim got a little messy, but that's just me.
Yeah, I was never planning on buying Fallout 76 to begin with, but I mean, with all the things going on with that game right now, I mean, it's a PR nightmare with Bethesda right now. Like every week, I'm seeing on the news something happens at Bethesda. It's like Bethesda did this to screw over the customers, and I think the one I saw this week was like a Nuka-Cola, like promotional whiskey or something like that.
Oh, geez.
And like the plastic is like they charge $80, and like the plastic, it's a piece of crap or something like that. I don't know. I mean, I just kind of skimmed through it, but like that's what they're mad about this week with the game. Ian's right. No, Ian, you are definitely right. The best part is really the mods. I think mods do bring some fun to these games. Like like especially watching them. Like I love the donkey Skyrim where he's just putting all these crazy mods in. He pulls a lightsaber out. Like has Master Chief as a assistant NPC, stuff like that. I mean, there's a good time to have with that. But in terms of the actual game, no mods, it's like it's just boring to me.
Yeah, the in terms of the actual mechanics, it leaves a lot to be desired for sure. Ni no Kuni 2, Revenant Kingdom. Now, this was a game that you were telling me about when you initially picked it up, and it had the wackiest plot line I'd ever thought of. Like something about like, if you want to go ahead and recite it again, something about like something with the president of the United States or something like that, or
yes. You start as the president of the United States, who's like middle-aged, and like a random explosion happens, and then you're in this mystical world, and you're younger, you're like a teenager, and then you save like this upcoming like boy who's going to be king from getting killed by uprisers, and then things happen, and you eventually start building your own kingdom. And the only thing that keeps crossing my mind every time is like, what if this was I'm not going to go political or anything, but for funny's sake, what if it was like President Trump who was going through this? It would be so funny. He'd be like, is this North Korea? Very weird looking.
Yeah, that'd be fantastic. But did you ever finish it, or
no? It's actually something I do need. I only got to like chapter 2, honestly.
Wow. And you put it down.
Yeah, I didn't get to do that. Actually, the kingdom building was actually a turnoff for me. It's not that it's poorly designed or the skirmishes that you do. They just feel like just something that they just like. It felt pointless to add them in. Like I don't like. I'd rather just go through the story and not have to deal with this other stuff. Now, granted, it's not hard to deal with, and a lot of times you don't have to. But at times when you do, it's like, all right, let's just go get this over with and go back to the story. Now, from what I played through, though, the game was pretty easy. It's just like, it has action elements to it. So it's not turn-based like the first Ni no Kuni, necessarily. You can, like, it's easy, at least what I played through. I don't know if the game gets harder or not. But like it was easy to dodge stuff and just swipe at it, just playing the president or the little kid, either one. I mean, or the girl that joins also. It's like it was just really easy.
Yeah. Again, that's one of those games that I've been looking at. I've seen it go on sale pretty cheap. I think the other day I saw it for $20. So it's definitely something I want to try out because I never played the first one either. And this one has gotten a lot of, I don't want to say praise, but it's got a lot of attention. So I definitely want to familiarize myself with this series. But I don't know, man. That plot sounds just wacky as all out. So
he called me out. All I want is just gorgeous hallways. That's it. I don't even want to play the game. Just want to put the controller down and just have him go through the hallway and play the game for me. You know, like a free-to-play game.
I just need a single finger. That's all I need.
Yeah. It's just to hit the auto battle button.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Kingdom Come Deliverance has had quite a year. So initially that game came out earlier this year, and it got a bunch of scathing reviews with people saying the game was super buggy, it's almost unplayable. And that was really disappointing to me because this game looked really cool. It was an open world RPG that was based on like actual historical events, and it looked really promising, but it had so many issues, and so many people were having such a hard time playing it. And I checked in recently, and it seems like they've solved a lot of these issues. Were you ever tempted to pick this one up?
No, nothing about it looked appealing to me. It kind of looked It kind of looked cheap, and it looked indie. I mean, it wasn't pretty much indie, but it looked very indie-ish. I mean, the presentations just didn't appeal to me.
Yeah, I know some people have complained that some of the animation style between, some of the story sequences, it's not the best, but it is a smaller team. And what they were able to accomplish here is just amazing. But I think one of the big things that really got to them was just the amount of bugs that were in the game. One of them that I saw that was really game breaking was there was some kind of lance bug where, like, if you picked up a lance, like, it would be permanently stuck in your hands, and then everywhere you went you would find random lances around on the ground, and like the game would continue to try to like load these lances like all over town, and it would just slow the whole game down. And like the developers could not figure out why it was happening, and they eventually patched it, but that was one of the most infamous ones that was going on with it. But, you know, with these giant open world games like this, like the amount of stuff that can go wrong is just endless, because you can basically do whatever you want. You know, when you have a more linear experience, they can test the crap out of it and fix all the issues. But when, you can just dump a player into the game and just that person can go wherever they want, talk to whoever they want, do quests in whatever order they want. All sorts of stuff can go wrong. So,
yeah, I mean, even big companies, like big AAA companies, have lots of bug issues with open world games a lot of times. So, I'm just imagining like a small company trying to take on these open world stuff.
Yeah,
I mean, it's got to be a nightmare.
Looks like Lane asked you a question there.
Yeah. Do you recommend playing the first Ni no Kuni, or can you jump to the second one? You can play either or. The stories are not related to each other. Different world, different characters, not related to the first one. There may be some like Easter eggs or stuff for the first game, but you can play them in any order. The biggest difference between the two is one is turn-based and one is more action oriented. So whatever your preferred style is. I didn't get to play much of 2, so I can't say which one is better, but I can tell you Ni no Kuni 1 was a great experience for me. That I enjoyed that game from start to finish. And I mean, it has like Studio Ghibli's magic just all over it. Studio Ghibli wasn't heavily involved in the second one, just to take that in the note, but Studio Ghibli was very heavily involved in the first one. So if you're looking for something specifically from them, I would start the first one.
Yeah. It says Skyrim Kingdom Come. Yeah, that was probably an influence for him. But I think what's interesting about that game, though, is the amount of like life simulation that's in this game. You basically start off the game and you like suck at everything. I mean, you have to teach your character how to read. You have to find a place to sleep, or you go to jail. You can't hold a sword, really. Like, there's a lot of investment into the character, so I can see why fan base has really developed around it. Hyun says, have either of you played the NES remake of Final Fantasy VII?
can't say I have. I've seen it on YouTube before,
Yeah.
but I've never actually played it myself. The only version of FF7 I've ever played is the PlayStation 1 version and the PC ports that have been spread around all sorts of different consoles. That's the only two versions I've ever played.
Yeah, me either. Like you, I've seen it on YouTube, but never had the opportunity. So I'm willing to play it though, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, got to play some form of make, right?
Yeah. Octopath Traveler, that was a big release this year. And, you know, I really like that game for a lot of reasons, but I don't like it for the reason I thought I was going to like it. I thought I was going to like it for the story, and the story was really, really disappointing to me.
The gameplay is...
I like the gameplay. It's just really grindy.
Yeah, that's the biggest fault of the battle system. It was a great battle system, but man, the grind was so freaking real that I actually looked up and like just found exploits to get more money and stuff like that. I mean, just that was frustrating. And while each individual story was, I mean, some were really good and some were so great. Like Primrose's story was good, but like
well, I think what undermines all the stories is the way the characters do not interact. So it just, any story sequence that should strike home is underscored by the fact that you have 2 or 3 people in your party that are not even saying anything.
Yeah, apparently I never finished the game, but people said that at the end that they all eventually their stories all collide for like one final story type deal. But that doesn't really make up for the fact that you just went through 8 different stories with like all these different scenarios and they only mildly talk to each other. Like, okay, so let's say
you talking about the little like story sequences, like press the Y button or whatever, and it would like, they would talk about like, I don't know, like the food they ate for dinner or something.
Yeah, or something like that. Or our character would comment on what's going on in that other character's story. But one thing that like narrative wise that like bothered me is like, okay, you have Ophelia, who's like this priestess like lady. She's like on a journey to collect these things. I'm forgetting, to like become like a higher priest or something like that. And so when you beat her story, you can go to the thief's story. So when you're the thief, your part of the story is you have to break into a manor and steal something. So, but you can pick up, but like Ophelia you can join your party, and which is weird because now narratively, do you think Ophelia is the type of person who would break into a manor and steal something? No,
absolutely not.
That's not how her character is. Like, if they wanted to do it right, then they could have been like, convinced Ophelia for some reason it's the right thing to do. But the thief going in there breaking it isn't doing it for the right reasons. He's going in there for his own gain, which he ultimately is a trap set for him.
Yeah, so I think that, like, and you said this earlier, like individually a lot of the stories are really, really good. It's just the way that they're put together with all the other characters, it just felt really sloppy to me. And I don't like the fact that I have to wait 70 hours or 80 hours or however long it takes me to get to a point where the characters actually have meaningful interactions. But, you know, that game, it did so many things right. The soundtrack, for one, was fantastic. The art style is just spot on. That's exactly what I would want a Final Fantasy VI remake to look like. And the battle system, I like that too. It was very strategic. I really, really enjoyed it. Each character had their own unique play style. But I'm a story guy. I have to have a good story. So unfortunately, that made me want to put it down. So
yeah, I mean, like you're spot on. Like, I mean, there's good elements to the game, but I don't think there's enough. I mean, it has one of my favorite artists doing the game also, and it has a great soundtrack. So it's a really shame to say that it's a game I can't recommend to people. If you're open to the fact that it's just like 8 separate stories and the characters don't interact with each other, I think there's enjoyment to be found. But personally, it's such a hard thing to recommend.
Yeah, well, it's because it's baffling. I don't know why they decided to do that. but it is what it is. The game's out, so I'm looking forward to hopefully another game made in that style. So
yeah, that's a good thing to compare it to is Saga. I mean, Saga has a very similar structure to it also, where you play multiple characters and they all like have their stories. But I don't. I mean, Ian would probably have to remind me. I haven't played a Saga game in forever, but like, I don't think they they attempted to make them work in the narrative together. I think they just had their own separate stories. I think that's
from what I remember, there was more effort put forth than was an Octopath,
and like, so it makes a little more sense narrative wise in Saga why it's like that.
But I think that I did read the same thing that he's saying, though. That's the primary reason for it, is a lot of the developers were really into those style of games. So is what it is. Did you ever get into, I'm sure you would have told me, but Assassin's Creed Odyssey, did you ever check that out?
Nope.
Me either.
I still have a copy of Origins I played for 30 minutes and didn't get past it. So I'm like, if like my interest just waited here, like, should I get Odyssey and have that happen again?
Yeah. I'm kind of in the same boat as you. Like I've kind of gave up on Assassin's Creed a long time ago, although I've been seeing a lot of people have been really enjoying this one, so I've been tempted to jump in.
I heard Origins wasn't bad either. I don't know. I mean,
once you get past the first 30 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, when they got to the point where I was like getting the quest structure up, I was like, I don't feel like. But I mean, maybe I'll try it one day. But I kind of blew a fuse with Assassin's Creed after the after Black Flag, the fourth one, which I enjoyed that game too. But after that, like I didn't beat Unity, I didn't beat Syndicate. I never beat an Assassin's Creed after that. Like they just kept feeling the same afterwards, and they screwed up the modern story in Assassin's Creed 3. So I mean, like after that, I was like, this is just getting old. I'm done, and I'm not regretting it.
Yeah,
but I think the direction that they're starting to take with Origins and Odyssey, I think that's a better direction. I think they're focusing mostly on like events of the past. I don't think they're really doing the modern stuff as much anymore. I think they just kind of dropped that story.
Yeah,
and just going with that, and I think that's a good idea. Especially how much
things up.
Yeah, especially how much they just kept screwing up and not knowing what they wanted to do. I guess so they can just keep the series going. But maybe one day, if Odyssey is like cheap and then like in a cheap sale or something like that, I think I'll pick it up and give it a chance.
Initially when it came out, it was looking like a solid 8 out of 10, like a good experience, but not a great experience with some issues. But the longer it's been out, the more praise I've seen from the game. So I think I might jump in here eventually. I never played a vampire, although I know some people really got into it. Sea of Thieves, that was a thing this year. It was kind of a big flop, it seemed like. Microsoft, I guess, put pressure on Rare to release the game early, and it's essentially an online, supposed to be a role-playing pirate game, but people bought the game and there wasn't really anything to do in it except talk to other people in the game. But
well, there really wasn't progression in the game. Like everything you got, like the costumes and everything, it was just pretty much glamour. So there wasn't really much motive for people to go out and do this stuff, because it started becoming a grind and a chore to go out and find this stuff. And people said they only really found enjoyment when they played together with friends. They said playing with solo was like a boring time overall.
Yeah.
So I did hear they added content to the game to make it more interesting.
That's what I was going to say. They've added a lot to it. They've added cargo runs. They've added a whole expansion to the game that's free. That's got like kind of like a much more challenging missions to do, and they've added a lot more monsters. And You know what it is? Like, I've watched some gameplay online because I've really wanted to jump into this game too at times, but it seems like you can only have fun if you have like a crew of people that are all ready to play with you. If you jump in by yourself and you don't know anybody, it seems like you're likely to just get like shot on a life raft for like 6 hours until somebody commandeers you to be part of their ship or something. And I just don't have enough time to do that, you know? I want to play the game and it be fun like within the first hour. So
Yeah, and a lot of people have already forgotten about the game, so I think Microsoft is just going to focus probably on who they have. I'm kind of surprised they're not being aggressive with the marketing, like just saying like, hey, we got content now, come and play it.
Yeah, and what's weird, well, I don't want to say weird, but what's cool about it is a lot of the content that they're adding, including the expansion, it's free. So they're not, they're not charging players to purchase any of this stuff. From what I understand, there's no microtransactions involved. So there's a lot of positive things with the game. It's just there's not a lot to do in it unless, you have a very social group that wants to play together. So
yeah, that's I never bought that either. I'm very skeptical of MMOs when they come out, and to see how they do first, then get it. I mean, Final Fantasy, of course, was an exception because it's Final Fantasy, but but yeah, I'm more careful now. Like, I was kind of interested in that Atlas MMO coming out. Like, this kind of looks cool. It's like a pirate MMO, but it looks like they had more going on than Sea of Thieves. And then I was like, I'll wait a few weeks and see how that goes, and if it goes well, maybe I'll try the game. And apparently it's a carbon copy of another game they made before it. I forgot the name. I think it was like Ark or something like that.
Well, I just Googled it, and the first quote that came up by PC World is Atlas is a disheartening MMO shipwreck.
Yeah.
That plunders your time. And I'm like,
that's a common thing said amongst reviewers and people who played it. Like, they took the exact same combat and assets pretty much from their previous game and put it on that. And apparently there's a bunch of bug issues. The game kept getting delayed, and when people finally got the game, it was just being a horrid mess. And they did like a sloppy job even copy and pasting their previous game onto there. So, I mean, everyone's been throwing PSA messages about that game. Do not play it.
Yeah.
At all. It's like, it's not worth even $30 that it costs to get into it.
Yeah. Well, there's plenty of those to go around. One game that came out this year that I was really excited to play, they've had like an early release version of the game for a long time, but they actually had the official release was Crosscode, and I know you got into it a little bit too. Did you ever jump back into it after your initial
I need to
play session? Yeah, because I haven't finished it yet, but that is a really good game. That's a really well-made game.
I put about 10 hours into the game, and I actually really liked it. It was very simple. It was like a MMO and not an MMO at the same time type of feeling.
Yeah.
It was really cool, and I really like how, even though it's a single-player game, it's just me. But when I played it, it just felt so lively. They made it really feel like I was like playing an online game just by myself, and I really liked that. The I'm sorry, the mechanics of the game are solid. Like, everything was very responsive. The button config layout was great.
I thought it moved like butter. Like, I was really impressed with it, and even just down to like the art style and the pacing of everything going on, I thought it was just spot on, and it really impressed me.
Yeah, and the story was intriguing too. I thought at first, like, looking at this, I'm like, oh, it's gonna be one of those games that are always self-referencing retro stuff and trying to act trendy and cool with it. Because like Iconoclast did that. That other RPG we played on the Switch did that. I forgot. It was like kind of Chrono Trigger-ish. God, I forgot the name of it. It was the one that I thought was okay. I never played much after that. I can't remember the name of that. But that's another game that did it.
Cosmic Star Heroine?
Yeah, Cosmic Star Heroine. And they kept doing that too. I'm like, okay, I get it. I'm playing a retro game.
See, that game was much more like styled towards like a specific player, because I can definitely say it wasn't the greatest game I ever played, but I think it like appealed to me, you know, and I could see why it wouldn't appeal to everyone else. But
Yeah,
yeah, Crosscode was definitely a better game for sure, though.
yeah, and I'm gonna give it the time it deserves eventually. It's I just kind of actually forgot about it, but I
Yeah.
really enjoyed what I did play. I thought it was kind of weird. Like I did all the side quests in the area I could, and I killed like any enemy I came past on
Hmm.
the way to those side quests and completed everything I could. But when I get to the next area with the next active quest, like the levels were just like so above me, and I was like, huh. I'm like, is this intentional by design or not? So that's kind of the point of the game where I got. I didn't really explore if that was a thing or not. But I will play it again.
Hmm.
I definitely will. I really enjoyed what I did play, and when I get more open time, I mean, I'm just too fascinated with my PS4 Pro right now. And I was kind of hoping for a Switch version also, but
Yeah,
the
me
main
too.
creator of that game has been very vocal about not a Switch port not happening, and that's because he used, I believe, HTML5 to make crosscode.
So he would have to what,
You would
recode
have
it
to
from the ground
use,
up?
yeah, you would pretty much have to use a new engine for Switch. I don't think Switch supports HTML5, so he would have to redo the game for the most part again to port it over.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I guess I mean I made an argument that you could hire another company to port it for you, but I don't know the situation on his end. I mean,
Well, and
chances are he can't afford to have
and
a
yeah,
third party port it.
the amount of time that they've put into this game, because I mean they've had a like an early release version of the game for like 2 years, right? So they've just been polishing and polishing and polishing this game for a long time. So I imagine that the idea of handing it over to someone else and letting them port it might freak you out, because what if they do a crappy job? And you know, the Switch version is the version the majority of people play. I mean, you know, there's probably a lot of fears going on with the idea of doing that, but uh,
I
I don't know. I
mean,
I definitely think if they could make it happen and it could come out on the Switch, I would buy it, and that would be my preferred way to play it. So
I guess the only thing I would ask is if they make another game one day or a Crosscode 2 or something like that, that he develops it in a format that can support stuff like the Switch.
yeah,
I guess it's
that's
the best thing you can ask for.
for sure.
Um, I mean, can't really ask the world of someone who's pretty much like a small indie.
Yeah.
It is a pretty monumental task unless you have the money to hire a third party to port it.
Mhm. There were some cringy games that came out this year. One that comes to mind to me was it came out in the early part of the year. Lost Sphere. That was one of the worst $50 I ever spent.
It was so boring.
Not
So,
only was it boring, it was just bad.
all the Browns and all of the non-interesting characters who
And
do the same exact thing every scenario.
they're just endless dialogue, and they're not saying anything. It's just, oh my god. Um, One plot point that always stuck out to me, and I guess this is a minor spoiler, but not really. But apparently, it's always been daylight in this world, and in order to rescue a friend of yours from this jail, they get this idea after reading this book that we're going to go over to this tower and we're going to activate this tower, and it's going to allow this thing called nighttime to occur. And once nighttime happens, we'll be able to go in and rescue our friend from this like cell or whatever. So I'm like, okay, that's weird, but that's kind of interesting, right? It's always been daylight out. So we go activate the tower and it turns night, and there's absolutely no reaction. I go back to town, kind of excited to go talk to everyone in town because this is the first time they've ever seen the sky with the lights out. And all the NPCs say the same exact thing that they said when it was daylight out. And I'm just like, this game is so lazily made. And like, you have little sequences like that throughout the entire game where it's just like you just copy and pasted a like generic JRPG on here, and but you didn't really go out of your way to make something special.
Yeah, pretty much. It's like they they emulated stuff that happens in retro JRPGs, but I felt like they didn't understand why those worked. They kind of just like, oh, they did this in a retro game. Let's see what we do if we do it, and it just feels soulless.
Yeah, and the game that they made before that, I Am Setsuna, like I know it had its issues. It was kind of generic in of itself, but that game had a little bit of a heart behind it, and I actually liked that game. So I was thinking that if this game was going to be a little bit better than I Am Setsuna, I should really love it, and I was really disappointed that it was actually worse, in my opinion, than I Am Setsuna.
I Am Setsuna, I thought was a very okay game. I didn't like the fact that like all the areas looked the same, like snow.
Yeah, it was all snowy. Yeah,
Snowfield, Snow Town, Snow Cave, Ruin Tower, Snow Cave.
Yeah.
But the story itself isn't, even though it's kind of like Final Fantasy X story. I mean, the characters were likable enough that like okay, I'll just see it through, see how this goes, and it was a very okay RPG.
Yeah, I mean the cast of characters were likable. You know, they each had their own unique personalities. You know, there was actually something for you to sink your teeth into. But man, Lost Sphere was just about as generic as it gets.
Yeah, that one, like they took. It's interesting. It's like they took 2 steps forward just to trip over and like 5 steps back.
Yeah. Another game that came out this year that I thought was pretty bad personally was the Secret of Mana remake.
Yeah.
I did not like that. I mean, I'm one of these people that when I go back to play the original Secret of Mana, I think it's a good game, but I don't think it's as good as a lot of people think it, like remember it. So the fact that like the remake was worse, I just did not appreciate it. The graphics were strange. Like I don't know why they decided to make it look like cell phone graphics instead of the beautiful pixel art that was there before. I mean, it just, I don't know, it just looked ugly. And
I wouldn't say the remake was awful. It did what it was supposed to, I guess, but the problem is it feels so bare minimum. Like they did like the absolute minimal of what you had to do to remake the game.
well,
It's
and
like,
not to mention the horrible voice acting.
well, yeah, the horrible voice acting.
It's just terrible.
Yeah,
Sorry,
I mean,
go ahead.
they use like bare bone graphics, something just to be considered passable.
Mm-hmm.
The game did feel smooth on the PS4. The Vita version, I heard from people, was a very sluggish version, and they said don't buy that one. I just kind of wish they just like HD remastered and just I don't know the best way to put it. I'm trying to compare it to something else. Like I wanted them to like recreate it like a cell shade 2D
Mm-hmm.
type deal, where like like how Odin Sphere, like how that game looks
Yeah,
gorgeous.
that would be perfect.
Like it'd have been cool if they did like try to bring the like artwork as much as they could to like the characters, and then just still make it like a 2D game and like brush up the mechanics and stuff like that. That would have been a great remake. But this was very obviously a low budget remake. They gave this to a small they gave this to a small team, and they're like, we'll only give you this much money. Now remake it.
And what was strange to me was one of the primary things that people really enjoyed about the original or had nostalgic memories about was them playing it with their friends. And you would think like a 2018 remake of the game would allow you to play online with your friends, but there was no online capability. Like your friend had to be in the living room with you. And I thought that was a very strange decision to make because, so many people have these memories of playing it with other people. Why not allow them to do that in a new way?
Yeah, they probably didn't have the budget to put online features in, if I had to guess.
Biophoenix, he says, yeah, the SNES Secrets of Mana was good, but not amazing. The remake feels pretty much the same to me, except the item menu was better. Oh, dude, I hated the item menu in the Super Nintendo version. I know a lot of people thought it was creative, where you would like press up or whatever, and it would have that like circle thing, and then you had to press another button to get to another part of the menu. But I swear to God, like that thing drove me nuts.
Yeah, I mean, I enjoyed the original Secret of Mana well enough, but I mean, I don't have a level of fondness for it that other people do. Like, people like tell me like the soundtrack is like one of the greatest soundtracks ever, and I'm like, I don't
It's
really
good.
agree.
Like I've heard worse, but it's not amazing.
There's some good ones. Like the forest theme is really good. I like the boss battle theme, but like the town music and places like that, like I find the soundtrack annoying, if anything.
Yeah, that's never good. I mean, I do think it was a highlight of the Super Nintendo era. Like, I definitely don't think it was a bad game, but it's one of those games that gets hyped up like it's like Chrono Trigger, Secret of Mana, and it's like, maybe not Chrono Trigger, maybe just a memorable game.
You
How
know,
about that?
after Legend of Mana on PS1, which is still a very split game itself, like there's a group of people that love Legend of Mana, and there's like a group of people who hate it. Like I have not many people that are like in the middle.
Yeah.
I guess I'm kind of in the middle. Also, I understand how it is and was able to enjoy it because of that. But even after Legend of Mana, though, like I don't think the Mana series has ever gotten really fair treatment. Like they've always gotten some, like the PS2 one. God, I forgot what the name was called of it, but the PS2 Mana game was just downright awful. I mean, it was so generic. The battle system was clunky and like required you to throw stuff all the time. But
it wasn't good.
I think the only pretty good Mana games I've played are the first two, Adventures of Mana and Secret of Mana. I heard the third game is good, but I don't think we got that in America. But I've never played that one.
Biophoenix, he says, this might sound crazy, but I actually like Secret of Evermore a little bit better. I'm gonna be honest, I agree with that statement.
I've never played that.
I'll
admit it.
It's not my favorite game, but I do enjoy it more than Secret of Mana. I never got into this game, but it came out this year. Did you ever play Valkyria Chronicles 4?
No, I plan to, but I haven't.
Yeah, because I've saw it got really good reviews. It's been one of those games that I've been looking at. I guess I've been saying about a lot of games, but like this one especially so. But
I really enjoyed the first one, and I thought the second one.
That's the only one I've played. I've only played the first one. I enjoyed it so.
Yeah, the second one is on PSP. I think maybe digital purchase on Vita also. I don't remember, but that one was a pretty decent. The first game is a lot better, but I think as a portable experience, the second game was pretty good. The third game we never got. That was that was Japan only. I think that was PSP also. But Valkyria Chronicles 4 is actually the first console sequel to for the series. So I never picked up 4, but I don't think you need to play 2 and 3 to play 4.
Yeah, because that would just be odd if we never got 3. Right?
Yeah. They came out with Valkyria Revolution also, but oh man, I did not like that.
I've heard bad things about that, so.
It's like generic characters go through generic story with generic combat mechanics. That's it.
Yeah. So I don't know. I'm gonna have to pick that up because I'm looking up right here. It's got like 9 out of 10 on Steam. IGN gave it an 8.7 out of 10. Metacritic's at about an 85. So it's supposed to be a pretty good game. So
I will jump on that eventually. If I see it cheap, I'll definitely pick it up.
Yeah. So that's really the thing, is the cost. I mean, I can't afford to buy every game that comes out, unfortunately. So I have to pick and choose. Did you ever get into the Divinity games at all? Divinity, I see a Divinity Original Sin 2 came out in 2018.
No, but I want to. I think I've missed the Steam sale too already, but I do want to get those when they're cheaper and on the Steam sale. because not they look great. I mean, like they look very appealing, but um, but I've not played a game like that in a good while, so I kind of want to wait till they're cheaper to, you know, make it feel like it's not a great loss if I turn out not liking it. But everyone around me tells me it's great, so I definitely want to try it out eventually.
Yeah, I've heard really good things, and I see right here IGN gave it a 9.6 out of 10. So, granted, IGN isn't always the greatest source for this type of stuff, but yeah, it looks really, really good. I've never gotten into it though, but I've heard really good things. As a friend of mine, I can't remember where, pointed out that it was kind of funny that it was called Divinity Original Sin 2. Like, this is a sequel to the original Sin. It's kind of funny, but yeah, I'll have to get into it eventually. Let's see here. We have Final Fantasy 15, the Pocket Edition that came out. That was kind of a mind fetch.
Yeah,
the fact that that was a thing.
I like the idea of it. The demakes, like they did like a 3DS version for Dragon Quest 11 and this demake version of 15. I think that's something that would be cool to do. Unfortunately, the thing that holds back the Pocket Edition the most, like the combat's pretty okay. Like playing with like and swiping your finger on the thing is like surprisingly intuitive. Like it's very easy to deal with. Actually, more so than than the game it comes from. The biggest problem with it is the story, which is the fault of Final Fantasy 15 as a whole itself, not the game in particular. Yeah. So if like say Final Fantasy 16 was really good, like that's like the greatest Final Fantasy ever to come out since whatever you think is the best Final Fantasy since then.
13, you know,
and they do like a demake of that, like on tablets and such. I'd be all for it. I'd be like, sweet, play a demake of Final Fantasy 16.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Like, it's not that the game itself was bad on the demake version. It was the fact that like the original game wasn't stellar. So, you know, when you demake a non-stellar game, the demake is also going to be non-stellar. I get it. You know, and I haven't really heard from anyone that's played this on the Switch either, which is
I think it's just button inputs instead of tapping on the screen, which can work.
Yeah,
because all you're doing is controlling Noctis on with your finger, and then you're just tapping certain like buttons on there. So those buttons can be converted to hard buttons on the Switch.
Yeah. BioPhoenix, he says, I think the idea of the demakes can be cool if they pick a style that looks interesting. I totally agree, and I think that was one of my issues with this Pocket Edition of Final Fantasy 15 was the fact that like I wasn't a fan of like the chibi character styles. I thought that looked very, very odd. That like when you demake a game, if you're gonna go for nostalgia, make it look like a PlayStation version or something. Don't make it look like a chibi, like I don't even know like what to call it, ugly version of these characters. And then on top of that, like the fact that it kept the original voice acting, but the mouths didn't move. Like there's in terms of presentation, it was a very, very odd choice to me.
You know what would be cool though is if like Final Fantasy 16 went back to like turn based. And so like you have the big full 3D experience on PlayStation 5 and Xbox 2, and then you have like the demake version, which is like but they use like Final Fantasy 6's 16-bit character models and graphics and everything, and they make a demake of that game for like the mobile that you can buy for
that'd be
however
real
much
cool.
they want for it. I mean, that would be cool, and that would give like two options for people. It's like you don't care about the new modern Final Fantasies but enjoy the old retro ones. It's like, well, we have a demake version of it. And as you can tell with Dragon Quest 11 and Final Fantasy 15, they're willing to do it.
Yeah.
So that will be an interesting concept in the future. I just hope they execute FF16 well enough that you would want to play a demake of it.
Yeah, for sure. Obviously, BioPhoenix says now that would rule. Yeah, I totally agree.
I'd play
it for sure. obviously one of the games that came out this year we haven't brought up, but we just did a video on it, Dragon Quest XI. That was probably one of the best RPGs I've played this year.
Best one this year.
Yeah, that was a really, really good. If anybody has not picked that up, I strongly recommend it. It's a longer game, but it was a very enjoyable ride, I would say. So it's not a bad thing that it was long. It's just a long game.
If you want my detailed thoughts, we have 2 videos saying it. But if you want it in short, amazing RPG. Takes what's great about RPGs back then and puts a new modern twist on it. Or not modern twist, like modern feel to it. And just almost everything in that game works. Just the characters are great. The music's great. The battle system's great. The world is great. The graphics are beautiful. I mean, and it's just a great journey from the start to the finish. Never bored once.
Yeah, if I could recommend a version of the game, I think that if I could do it over again, I would probably get the Steam version, to be honest, just so that I could mod it and use the orchestra version of, the music, because I'm kind of jealous that people are playing the game modded with that version, because, we had to listen to the synthesized version on the PlayStation 4, which wasn't bad at all, but it can't compare to, a live orchestra. So I would definitely recommend that version.
But if you want my RPG of the year for 2018, it's Dragon Quest XI. And even if I said game of the year, my own game of the year, Dragon Quest XI. That no other game this year got me hooked to the point that Dragon Quest did. Like, I was just glued to my chair, like not wanting to leave it.
Yeah, for sure.
I even took a week off of work to play it. I mean, I'm that crazy of a Dragon Quest fan, and I'm allowed to be, because these games do not come out every year. And
yeah, I don't blame you at all. And what's funny is it's such a long game that you took a week off work, and then by the time you return to work, like, you still had more game to play. So
I was like a little over halfway done when I had to go back.
Which is just crazy. Yeah, I had to work the whole time, so it took me like 3.5 months to beat the game, but I was doing other stuff too, so I'm sure if I really put my mind to it, like on a daily basis, I probably could have got through a little bit faster. But yeah, that was a fantastic game. Is there anything else you want to bring up for games this year? I'm going through Google, and I mean, there's a lot of games that we're not even talking about here, but we're starting to get to games that I've never even heard of before.
I think we went over the big ones. There was the Xenoblade 2 DLC.
Yeah,
that came out.
There was that one. That was a big one. I didn't
play it. I haven't even beaten the original one yet, so I haven't played that one yet. I did hear, though, that it fixed a lot of issues that were present in Xenoblade 2, and it actually, and what people said, it's a full RPG in itself. And
yeah, I heard it's like 30 hours or something like that. It's pretty long.
That's pretty amazing. That's more than just an expansion. That's just that's a prequel game.
Yeah,
that's crazy. I mean, Nintendo, if you want other companies, if you see how DLC should be done, Nintendo has a better idea of it, I think.
Well, and what's crazy is, a lot of times games will come out and then you have to wait like 7 years for like another game in the series. And, I know that's because they're starting from ground zero again and they're rebuilding a completely new game. But, this game came out and they immediately started on the DLC, and it's a 30-hour DLC, give or take, depends on how long, you spend, if you take your time or you blast through it. But, they made a full another game basically in like 1.5 or 2 years. So, I mean, that's impressive, and it's apparently good. So
I have my mixed feelings of Xenoblade 2, but I'm very proud the developers did something like this. That's just incredible for people who really enjoyed Xenoblade 2. They essentially get to play a whole other game. That was pretty amazing. I applaud them for that big time.
Yeah. I'm sure there's a lot of games that came out this year that we're not thinking of, but that's about the most that I can think of off the top of my head, and just from the little search I did online just to try to make sure I didn't miss anything big. But let's see here. The only other thing was World of Final Fantasy, but that already had come out. That was a version on the Switch. There's a HD remaster of Dark Souls. I never picked that up. I was tempted to, but I didn't pick it up. So
Yeah, BioPhoenix, Dragon Quest games are always far apart. Dragon Quest X came out in 2010 in Japan, and I believe Dragon Quest XI came out in 2017 in Japan, and we got it here 2018.
yeah.
So yeah, I can maybe 2025 for Dragon Quest 12, at least in Japan, maybe my prediction.
Yeah, it's going to be a while. That's for sure.
Yeah, but it's great every time. Great experience every time. Every time it's worth the wait.
Yeah. So let's move on to our last topic. That way we're not here till 4:00 in the morning.
Yeah.
So I thought it'd be interesting if we talked about open world games and just open world RPGs and their structure and what we thought about the future of open world design, and if we thought it was going to continue to be a thing, because it seems like, ever since Skyrim, like open world has just been the way to go for like mainstream RPGs. That's my words. I don't know if you share that opinion, but it's been the predominant thing for a while now. And to me personally, it seems like it's getting to the point where we're starting to see, at least for me, some fatigue with that style of game. We kind of talked about it a little bit with Fallout, where it just feels like, it's the same game over and over again. They get boring. And it seems like the only thing that's really being advertised with them nowadays is, how much bigger the world is. Like, it's twice as big as the last version. Or, Tabata, before he left Square Enix, he was talking about his new IP was going to be even larger than Final Fantasy 15. And it's like, that's great. That was amazing. Back when, open world games really hit their stride on the mainstream. But, today, like, I don't really want to keep going that route. I mean, I do think there's games that have shown that there's still life left in the open world formula, games that have focused more on just keeping the player entertained, like, Breath of the Wild or Horizon Zero Dawn, where it's just like around every corner there's something for you to interact with. It's not the largest open world out there, but it's got enough content in there to keep you entertained. But Breath but you see what I'm saying though. Like,
yeah.
It's not appealing because the world's large. It's appealing because of the way it's designed, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's really what I meant. But what do you think about open world games?
I'm completely fine with open world games. I think they can be very enjoyable. I mean, one of the best games I played in a long time, Breath of the Wild, was an open world game. And the whole thing with open world is that when you build a narrative to the open world, it needs to be built from the ground up with the notion that you are in an open world, because the world you're in is just as much as a character as the actual character you're controlling.
Yeah, I totally agree.
So you just have to make sure that it makes sense that this character is in this world, open world, doing this open world stuff. And I've talked about it before with FF15. And the problem with that was that they were trying to tell a JRPG linear narrative story in an open world, and the two just couldn't mesh together. I mean, it was a complete mess. And like, you kept questioning yourself, why is such and such doing this in an open world? Why is Noctis out catching frogs? Why doesn't he have access to money just to pay for stuff? Why does he have to go to quest NPCs and stuff? It doesn't make sense. Now you have The Witcher 3, and it makes complete sense why that game is open world. It has a good narrative flow, but it also makes sense that you go out of your way and do side quests because you're a Witcher. And as a Witcher, your job is to get paid by people to kill monsters in the supernatural. So it makes sense that you're in an open world interacting with other people while focusing on the main story too. FF15 was basically trying to tell like a very linear story, like Final Fantasy usually is, but in an open world. Because of that, it didn't work well.
Yeah. I think that the reason that was the case was because they were trying to go for what's stylish right now, right? Like we've had like the open world structure for like as long as video games have been around. Like that has been an idea. Even if you go back to like text adventure games, like you always had that idea of exploration, but people didn't make a game generally open world unless like it like made sense. Like, oh, that would be a cool idea for an open world game. But like once open world became the cool thing to do, you started seeing games like Final Fantasy 15 that were just, you know, oh, like this is the stylish thing to do. We're going to make it open world because that's what's in right now. That's what will sell. You know, I think I even read where there was some talks about making Dragon Quest 11 open world before they scrapped that. But I mean, you know, not everything needs to be open world. I mean, we even had a Dynasty Warriors open world game. Like that's ridiculous. So you know, I just don't see this continuing to go that way. I mean, I'm totally agree with BioPhoenix. He says I think we need a balance of having some games to open world and some that are more linear. I think that like I don't want open world games to go away entirely. I think they should always be around. Witcher 3, I love that game. I think that game's perfect for an open world structure, and I want more games like that. But I don't know, man. I just think that like eventually we're going to get to the point where, and I think we're starting to get to that point where people are starting to appreciate some more linear styled games or some other types of games. So, and the other thing too is these games are expensive to make. You know, and with the amount of pushback on microtransactions and you know, loot boxes and the amount of heat you know, like Rockstar Games has gotten for how hard they're pushing their workers to build these like gigantic worlds and like uber detail. Like I just think it's going to get to the point where like they can't keep outdoing themselves. Like these things are going to get too expensive. It's going to be too risky. I mean, look at Mass Effect Andromeda. I mean, that totally was not an issue of, you know, the world style, but the fact that like the animations were crappy, right? That sank the whole franchise basically because, you know, now they said like, well, we're probably not going to revisit Mass Effect for a very long time. That used to be a household name, and one game doing poorly sunk the whole franchise. I mean, like they can't keep doing this, and I guess that's the biggest thing I think about is like these games are just crazy expensive to make, and I just don't see it being something that can continue going on.
Did we actually make a crappy game? No, the fans just don't want Mass Effect anymore. That's just how it is.
Yeah, times have changed. They don't like it anymore. We're gonna make something else. We're gonna make Anthem.
I mean, as you can see now, I mean, companies should be a little more scared than they used to be. People on the internet can get together and tell you and let you know if a game's really bad ahead of time, and you can lose sales pretty quickly. And I mean, Mass Effect Andromeda is probably an example of that. Yeah. I mean, I don't know, but I mean, I'm for linear games and I'm for open world games. My number one rule is that it just needs to make sense.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there needs to be if there's a purpose for the open world, great. If you're just making an open world just to have an open world and not offering any level of depth or substance to it or anything like that, then I mean, like, then why are you spending this much money? And at that point, it's just trying to appeal to the lowest common denominator of people.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just, you know, I about a year and a half ago, I was at the point where I was just like, if I saw a game was going to be open world, I was just pretty much, I just wasn't interested because I just felt myself thinking of, you know, Fallout or something like that, where I'm just bored. But then I picked up Horizon Zero Dawn, and I love that game. That's one of my favorite games. And
it is an amazing game.
And like, I'm just like, dude, they could still do this and it could still be fun and entertaining. You just have to construct it in the right way. And like that game, like even random encounters feel like scripted. Like it feels like they personally like designed this encounter. Like there's nothing like a regular random encounter like getting your heart thumping, and like you just feel like that was a boss battle. Like I just got chased for a mile and a half by some huge robot creature, and like I was like diving out of the way, like barely scraping by until I finally killed this thing. Like that game is fabulously made. So, I think if they can just, if an open world structure of an RPG really needs to just focus on, the very moment, like what is the player currently doing right now? What can they do 30 seconds from now? I hate when it just feels like it's like a giant field, like Final Fantasy 15, right? Where it's just a giant field and there's nothing to do for like minutes at a time. That's the worst feeling ever. Like that's not an entertaining experience at all.
Yeah, like I barely used the fast travel in Horizon unless it was like on the other side of the whole map. But
Hmm.
like if I was going like a reasonable amount of distance, like I would just walk it because chances are there's something to do on the way.
Yeah, and
You
that's
can
I
find
was just
something, and it's just like collecting the stuff for completion while you're doing it.
yeah, I was the same way in that game because I realized fast travel was an option, but it was so much fun traveling from point A to point B. Like by the time you got to your destination, you feel like you've been on your own adventure, So that game was a really really good, and I would say Witcher 3 was really really good as well, but for a different reason. I just
Me
I don't know what.
personally, I think Breath of the Wild is still my favorite open world game right now. It just absolutely checked off everything. Oh, and
Yeah.
now I can complain about it some, about like how all the dungeons looked the same and the boss battles were not that great, except
Hmm.
maybe like a few of them. But I think if you made some improvements, like Hyrule Castle in Breath of the Wild was an amazing dungeon because you could approach it from multiple angles. Like you could like sneak through the sewers under, or you could just straight out do a front assault through the front gate. I mean, or you could just like fly from the top to the roof of the castle. I mean, there's so many ways you could get in, and there's many ways to traverse through it. And I'm thinking to myself, if they make like a new Zelda and they make more dungeons in the world like this, and
Hmm.
just scatter them about, it would be like the ultimate Zelda game. I
Yeah.
think. I mean, I love the hell out of Breath of the Wild, but I'll acknowledge some of the flaws it had. Like, but I think it set the foundation to make what the next Zelda game may be just like the best, potentially the best modern Zelda ever.
Yeah, the only reason I think I preferred, and I realize you're saying that Horizon Zero Dawn is also an excellent game. I think the only reason I preferred that game a little bit more than Breath of the Wild was I tend to be a little more story driven, and Breath of the Wild was great, but it did lack a little bit of a story focus for my personal taste. But what I did enjoy about that game was just the fact that like I could just turn it on and entertain myself for 3 hours, just and not making my own adventure. Climbing this cliff, trying to sail down somewhere, or trying to solve a puzzle. Usually, I'm not a big puzzle person. I don't like puzzles in games. But these puzzles in Breath of the Wild were actually really entertaining, like and really enjoyable. And I got to feel a like deep satisfaction when I'd actually solve something. Like, wow, I figured that out. I can't believe that. That was crazy. And there's like multiple ways a lot of times to solve these puzzles. So it was
Yeah,
really good.
I will admit Horizon definitely has the better narrative,
Hmm.
but I think Horizon was aiming to make sure it had that and that at a top quality. I think Nintendo really focused to make a good enough story to motivate you to keep trekking around the world.
Yeah.
Um, like especially since almost all the story content you get in the game
Hmm.
is through finding it, and it's like a past memory from 100 years ago.
Sure. I mean, it's not, and like that's not to say the story in Breath of the Wild was bad, or that I didn't like it or anything like that. It was definitely interesting enough for me to continue to play it. So it's just a preference thing, I think.
Hmm.
But
I mean, if
that
you're
was
looking for a much stronger narrative story, then Horizon's the way to go, most
yeah.
definitely.
That was such an odd thing, though. Remember, there was a lot of hate, I think, going back and forth between the fan bases and like whether or not Horizon Zero Dawn was better than Breath of the Wild. Like that was a thing initially for like a couple of months, and I thought that was such an odd thing. Like, why can't people just enjoy both games?
I don't think I was part of that. I don't think I've ever been in a. I don't think I've ever been in a. I mean, someone refresh my memory if I don't remember, but I don't think I've ever been in a argument of which game was better. I mean,
Hmm.
I think at least the people I was speaking to at least acknowledged that both games were
Yeah.
great and like
Hmm.
deserve all the credit that they
Hmm.
deserve.
Yeah. I mean, 2017 was a great year. Had a lot of great games, but yeah. So I don't know. We got the next Elder Scrolls game coming out. Something tells me that's not going to be very good.
I'm not gonna
Um,
play it. I don't care how good people say it is. I'm done with Bethesda RPGs. Even that new
they're
one
calling
they
it.
have that's gonna be like futuristic and in
Mhm.
space. I mean, I forgot what that's called, but I'm not gonna play that either.
Not even if it's getting good reviews.
No, because Fallout 4 and
Oh, that's true. Fallout
Skyrim
4 had
got
great
good
reviews.
reviews, and like I played those games, I was bored out of my mind.
I can have a good time with Skyrim, but I definitely don't think it was better than Morrowind or even Oblivion. So, but yeah.
I played Morrowind way back then, and I would have to play it now to see how I feel about it. But I enjoyed it a lot because I played with I would go when that came out when I was like in middle or high school, I think,
Hmm.
and like around there, I would always go over to my friend's house all the time, and we'd play together, and there was enjoyment through that. I don't know how much enjoyment I would have with it if I played by myself, but I do remember the game fondly,
Yeah.
to say the least.
I kind of had a similar story to you. Like I remember I used to go over to my friend's house. I think it was early high school, like maybe like ninth grade or something like that. And he was showing me this. I think he illegally downloaded it in like 52 separate files, and he had to like put it all together or something like that. But I thought it was crazy. Like I was like, wow, you just kind of like do whatever you want. You encounter all these creatures, you level yourself up. I saw him always hopping everywhere to like level himself up. But initially or recently, I did download it and I installed some mods and kind of gave it a HD facelift, and it's still a good game. One of the things that annoyed me about it was uh, the RNG factor when you're attacking. Like it's like, dude, I'm clearly hitting the enemy. Like the sword is going right into the enemy, but it's not it's not registering because it's a dice roll when you whether or not you do damage. So I had to get back into a flow of things from that perspective.
What I thought about Cyberpunk 2077 preview, looks good, looks great. I want to play it when it comes out.
Yeah.
Aesthetically, it looks very pleasing. I liked the 40-minute gameplay video I saw. I didn't watch all of it, but I watched like parts and bits of it. And what I saw looked very entertaining. It looks high quality, and I mean that's something I'm going to pick up. Now, I mean, what did you think about it?
I mean, when I checked it out, I mean, I'm in the middle on it. Like, I don't really know if it's going to be a style of game that I would like. I mean, generally, I like, that kind of like sci-fi ish style, but it seems a little out there for me personally. It looked really polished for sure, but I don't think it's going to be a day one purchase for me at all.
Mm-hmm. Now there is one open world game coming out that's actually it upsets me a little bit, but I want to see where they're going with it before I make any judgment calls on it. Is Beyond Good and Evil 2?
Yeah.
That's like open universe or something like that, and they're like, this is going to be the biggest world map ever made and stuff like that, and like it's like cool, we're finally getting the sequel, but that's not how the first game was. It's
Yeah.
like it feels like you're making a completely different game at this point. And I look at the gameplay. I mean, it's gorgeous looking, but I kind of feel like they're going overkill with it. I think part of the charm of Beyond Good and Evil is it's still like you were a relative size place to explore, but it still felt contained enough that like it was a nice like kind of like what's the best way to put it? Kind of like Jack and Dexter in a way. It's like it got a nice contained map to
Hmm.
explore, and you go and do different things and like puzzles and dungeons and stuff like that. I mean, it was fun like that. a nice little contained game. And this one is just like, you want Beyond Good and Evil 2? You know how you've been asking for it for years? Well, oh, we'll give it to you. And it's like, no, you just calm down a little bit. It's okay. It's like, no. We got to make this open universe. We got to just like make it so ridiculously freaking big that it's not going to come out for another 10 years.
Yeah, and like just the fact that it's big is not necessarily a plus, because that just makes me feel like it's going to take me 27 minutes to get to the next thing for me to do something. You know, I don't want to traverse that much time with me just, you know, pressing the up button. Like I want to actually play a game. So,
and they're working with like Joseph Gordon-Levitt. I think that's what his name is, Joseph Gordon-Levitt, on putting like his art, like his art studio artwork in the game, and like that that like updates itself with like new art in the game. And because of stuff like that, they, and other reasons, not particularly that the game's always, you have to be online to play the single player game.
I don't like that either, but what are you gonna do?
It's just how it is.
Yeah, and the fact that like they're doing all this crazy stuff. Imagine if this game flops, like you know, they'll probably never make a third one, or not even flops if it just doesn't like sell record breaking amounts. It's, you know, I don't know. I don't like that.
I don't like the idea of it, just to say the least. But I mean, if they show more of it over the years and it just looks like it's shaping up to be something great, it's like, yeah, I'll want to play it. But just the idea of them just going overboard with this, it's just unsettling to me.
Yeah. I think that kind of wraps our last topic up. We did have some comments from last week. Nothing crazy, but we can kind of touch base on those real quick. So last week we were talking about Soulja Boy, and Mike from Resonant Art / Dark Pixel Gaming. He said the whole Soulja Boy situation is baffling. What a cluster fetch. And yeah, I think that's a perfect way to put it. It is very, very much what I would say is a baffling situation for sure. And then BioPhoenix, he said, of course, he's going to make our next live one. Obviously, we've been talking to him the whole time. And then Cerez Cypher, he was wondering if we're still going to have these podcasts on audio only form, or audio only platform. So he likes to listen to it on Stitcher. Yeah, we're still doing that. Nothing's changed. We were just over the holidays, so things got a little crazy with our schedules. But we're back to normal. Everything's going to be good. The only thing that's changing is we're trying to live stream these a little bit more, and that'll kind of make the whole upload process to YouTube a bit easier. And we like talking to you guys while we're, you know, doing the podcast, so that way you can kind of interject your own opinion. But yep, the audio version's still going to be out, and nothing's changing on that front. So, yep. But is there anything you think that we left on the table that should still be discussed?
No, I think we got what we wanted to say out.
Perfect. All right, guys. Well, I think that wraps us up for this episode. I really appreciate you all tuning in with us. We're going to try to do these more on the weekend. I know we live streamed the past one during the week, but that's just because of our schedules. But we're going to try to do this more regularly. And like I said, we appreciate you all checking us out and joining your Saturday evening with us here. So we're going to try to do this more in the future. But we'll have to catch you all next week. Real quick, I just want to say that I'm starting to stream games a little bit. I know Eric has talked about he might join in on some as well. So just check out our channel every now and again and see if we're streaming something. That way, you know, might be something you're interested in. But other than that, we'll catch you all next week. Take it easy, guys.
All right. See you guys.